The Siege of Lisbon, from July 1 to October 25, 1147, was the military action that brought the city of Lisbon under definitive Portuguese control and expelled its Moorish overlords. The Siege of Lisbon was one of the few Christian victories of the Second Crusade. It was the only success of the universal operation undertaken by the Pilgrim Army, i.e., the Second Crusade, according to the near-contemporary historian Helmold, though others have questioned whether it was really part of that crusade. It is seen as a pivotal battle of the wider Reconquista. The fall of Edessa in 1144 led to a call for a new crusade by Pope Eugene III in 1145 and 1146. In the spring of 1147, the Pope authorized the crusade in the Iberian Peninsula. He also authorized Alfonso VII of Leon and Castile to equate his campaigns against the Moors with the rest of the Second Crusade. In May 1147, a contingent of crusaders left from Dartmouth in England. They had intended to sail directly to the Holy Land, but weather forced the ships to stop on the Portuguese coast, at the northern city of Porto on June 16, 1147. There they were convinced to meet with King Afonso I of Portugal. The Crusaders agreed to help the king attack Lisbon, with a solemn agreement that offered to the Crusaders the pillage of the city's goods and the ransom money for expected prisoners. The siege began on July 1. After 4 months, the Moorish rulers agreed to surrender on October 24, primarily because of hunger within the city. Most of the Crusaders settled in the newly captured city, but some of the Crusaders set sail and continued to the Holy Land. Lisbon eventually became the capital city of the Kingdom of Portugal, in 1255. Second Crusade. The traditional start of the Reconquista is identified with the defeat of the Muslims in the Battle of Covadonga in 722. After the First Crusade in 1095–1099, Pope Paschal II urged Iberian crusaders to remain at home, where their own warfare was considered just as worthy as that of crusaders traveling to Jerusalem. The fall of Edessa in 1144 led to a call for a new crusade by Pope Eugene III in 1145 and 1146. In the spring of 1147, the Pope also authorized a crusade in the Iberian Peninsula, where the war against the Moors had been going on for hundreds of years. Pope Eugene encouraged Marseille, Pisa, Genoa, and other Mediterranean cities to fight in Iberia. He also authorized Alfonso VII of Leon and Castile to equate his campaigns against the Moors with the rest of the Second Crusade. On May 19, 1147, a contingent of crusaders left from Dartmouth in England, consisting of Flemish, Frisian, Norman, English, and Scottish crusaders, and some from Cologne, who collectively considered themselves Franks. No prince or king was in charge of the expedition, and its participants seem to have been largely made up of townsmen, who organized themselves using a sworn oath. Leadership was provided by Henry Glanville, Constable of Suffolk. Other Crusader captains included Arnold III of Ayrshot, Christian of Gistles, Simon of Dover, Andrew of London, and Sayer of Arkell. But important decisions were taken collectively. Redirected efforts. According to Odo of Douai, there were 164 ships bound for the Holy Land, and there may have been as many as 200 by the time they reached the Iberian shore. Bad weather forced the ships to stop on the Portuguese coast, at the northern city of Porto on June 16, 1147. There they were convinced by the bishop, Pedro II Pitos, to meet with King Afonso of Portugal. The king, who had reached the Tagus River and conquered Santarém on the 15th of March, had also been negotiating with the Pope for the recognition of his title of king. He was notified of the arrival of a first party and hastened to meet them. The undisciplined multinational group agreed to help him there, with a solemn agreement that offered to the Crusaders the pillage of the city's goods and the ransom money for expected prisoners. For the city, they shall have it and hold it until it has been searched and despoiled, both of prisoners for ransom and of everything else. Then, when it has been as thoroughly searched as they wish, they shall turn it over to me." Afonso promised to divide the conquered territories as fiefs among the leaders. He reserved the power of advocatus and released those who were at the siege and their heirs trading in Portugal from the commercial tax called the pedicator. The English crusaders were at first unenthusiastic at this change of plan, but Henry Glanville convinced them to participate. Hostages were exchanged as sureties for the oaths. Fall of Lisbon. The siege began on July 1. The Christians soon captured the surrounding territories and besieged the walls of Lisbon itself. After 4 months, the Moorish rulers agreed to surrender, because the Crusaders' siege tower reached their wall and because of hunger within the city, which was sheltering populations displaced from Santarém as well as the leading citizens of Sintra, Almada, and Palmela. After a brief riotous insurrection, the Anglo-Norman chronicler attributes to the men of Cologne and the Flemings. The city was entered by the Christian conquerors on October 25. The terms of the surrender indicated that the Muslim garrison of the city would be allowed to keep their lives and property. But as soon as the Christians entered the city, these terms were broken. According to the De Expugnation Lisbonense Aftermath, some of the Crusaders set sail and continued to the Holy Land. However, most of the Crusaders settled in the newly captured city, thus boosting the number of Christian supporters in Iberia. Gilbert of Hastings was elected Bishop, marking the beginning of the historic relationship between England and Portugal, which would later form the Anglo-Portuguese alliance. In spite of the contractual nature of the city's surrender, a legend arose that the Portuguese warrior and nobleman, Martim Moniz, sacrificed himself in order to keep the city doors open to the conquering Christian armies. Lisbon eventually became the capital city of the Kingdom of Portugal in 1255. The victory was a turning point in the history of Portugal and the wider Reconquista, which would be completed in 1492.